He said I was too much, so I became his stepmom and cut his inheritance. Part 3. Chapter 18, Inheritance. Never heard of her. There are moments when a man's entire sense of entitlement evaporates. For Charles Langford, former heir, part-time podcast host, and full-time cautionary tale, that moment arrived on a damp Wednesday, in a room that used to be his childhood sanctuary. The Langford study. Dark wood. Old books. A scent of leather and silent judgments. This was the room where he once built blanket forts. Played chess with nannies. Where his father told him he'd someday own it all. And now? He was being summoned. To receive his inheritance. Or so he thought. A formal letter had arrived, navy cardstock, gold seal, minimal text, her signature style. Langford estate, private appointment required. Final distribution of estate items. Study. Wednesday. 3 p.m. His heart had raced. His brain had spiraled. Maybe it wasn't all lost. Maybe she hadn't convinced his father to disown him completely. Maybe this was an olive branch, some inheritance clause, some dusty old loophole that couldn't be rewritten. So he came. Wore a black blazer. Shaved. Popped a Xanax in the driveway. And walked into the house like a man entering a battlefield with a white flag stitched out of delusion. She was already seated. Not at the desk. That was too obvious. She sat on the leather divan by the fireplace, legs crossed, gown flowing, fingers wrapped around a teacup like it held state secrets. Charles Sr. stood beside her, calm as a retired villain. On the desk? A large box. Velvet. Ornate. Ominous. He stepped forward. I got the letter, he said. She didn't look up. Oh good. We were worried your ego had eaten it. Charles Sr. gestured to the box. This, he said, is what we've decided you should have. The ex stepped forward, hesitated, then opened it. Inside, nestled on a satin cushion like a precious family heirloom, was a framed, printed screenshot of the breakup text. The same one she'd displayed above the fireplace. But this time, custom engraved. Gold trim. Backed in marble. Heavy as gilt. You're a lot. I don't think you're wife material. It's not you, it's the chaos. Beneath it, etched in gold. The moment everything changed. C. Langford 3 and wife. He stared. Silent. Confused. Then came the blinking. The sputtering. The crimson flush crawling up his neck. This is it, he choked. This is all I get. She stood. Slowly. Effortless. A goddess in heels with a legal department behind her. Yes, she said. You left me with a text. I returned the favor with permanence. His voice cracked. You ruined my life. No, sweetheart, she purred. You texted your way out of it. I just hit print. He turned to his father, desperate. You're really doing this? Giving her everything? Leaving me nothing? Charles Sr. looked at his son, once his heir, now just a shadow of entitlement, and said quietly. You had everything. And you threw it away for convenience. Silence. A crackle from the fireplace. And then she added, just as he turned to leave. If it makes you feel better, I'll have the frame insured. Technically, it's worth more than your podcast. He left the way he came in. Quietly. Defeated. Drenched in the realization that not only was he cut out, but that his only inheritance was now a cautionary wall ornament. She poured herself more tea. Smiled. Later that evening, The framed breakup text was mounted on the wall permanently, in the main hall, between a 19th-century portrait of Charles's great-grandfather and a Damien Hirst piece that looked like spilled secrets. A plaque beneath it read, "History is written by the emotionally intelligent. Mrs. Langford." Chapter 19, The Screaming, the Security, the Scotch. By this point, most people would have given up. They would have taken the loss, licked their wounds, moved on with their beige life and their bland girlfriend, and maybe opened a wellness podcast no one listens to. But not him. Charles Langford IV did not go quietly. He went loud, sweaty, and borderline criminal. Because when his inheritance was reduced to a framed breakup text, and his stepmother was sipping champagne in his father's chair, something in him snapped. It didn't crack. It detonated. The estate was hosting a modest gathering, only 40 guests, 3 sommeliers, 2 private chefs, and a harpist flown in from Florence. It was a wine-tasting/boardroom merger celebration/excuse for her to wear backless sequins on a Thursday. The guest list was exclusive. He wasn't on it. Which is why, when the front gates buzzed at 9:47 p.m., no one expected him to show up. Drunk. Dishevelled. Eyes wild with entitlement and desperation. Security hesitated. He still had the last name. Still technically had blood rights. But she had the power now. And she said 2 words. Let him in. He stormed through the foyer, knocking over a crystal vase that predated the Second World War. His voice echoed through the hall like a siren of spoiled privilege. Where is she? She was already walking down the staircase. Slowly. Gracefully. In heels that cost more than his rent. Wearing black satin and the calm expression of someone who'd seen this tantrum coming since the brunch incident. You're not invited, she said softly. You took everything, he shouted. A guest gasped. The harpist kept playing. Like a true professional. He reached for a wine glass, and threw it. It missed. Shattered against the marble, sending a nearby heiress shrieking and a duke's poodle into cardiac distress. That was enough. 2 members of the estate's personal security stepped forward, gloved, polite, and entirely unbothered. Sir, we are going to escort you out, one said with crisp calmness. Touch me and I'll sue, he barked. You can't afford it, she replied, already halfway to the bar. As security took him by the arms, gently, like you would a malfunctioning Roomba, she lifted a glass from the bar. Not champagne this time. No. Scotch. Neat. 20 a year. Aged to perfection. Like vengeance. She raised it high enough for the guests to see. For the gossip columnists to scribble. For the ex to watch with hollow eyes as he was dragged past the double doors. To consequences, she said, sipping slowly. Then added, and to men who think volume is a form of power. Applause broke out. Actual, spontaneous applause. The harpist switched to Toxic by Britney Spears. She didn't stop him. He was escorted off the property. Banned. Formally. His name was removed from the gate system and replaced with the phrase "Do not admit legacy redacted." A new guest rule was posted the next day. No shoes on white rugs. No red wine near tapestries. No exes beyond the 3rd gate. She sipped her scotch and had the rug replaced anyway. Just because she could. Later that night, as the last guest left, Charles Sr. poured her another drink. Did you enjoy the show? He asked. She leaned in, kissed him softly, and whispered. I didn't even break a sweat. Chapter 20, Holiday Cards from Hell. Some people send warm holiday wishes. She sent warning shots wrapped in foil embossed envelopes. Because once you've destroyed a man's inheritance, dignity, and emotional equilibrium, the only thing left to take is his holiday season. And so began the most legendary Christmas campaign in Langford estate history. It happened innocently enough. She was reviewing the guest list for the winter ball, sipping a peppermint martini and humming a vaguely threatening version of Silent Night. Charles, in his favorite red cashmere, asked, "Should we send cards this year?" She looked up slowly and smiled. "Oh, darling. We're not just sending cards. We're sending a message." She hired a photographer flown in from Paris. Not for talent, for aesthetic rage. The shoot took place in front of the Langford fireplace. The same one where the framed breakup text now lived. Yes, it made the background. They wore matching winter white. She, in a floor-length fur-trimmed gown with a slit high enough to cause international conflict. He, in a bespoke tux with a holly boutonniere and an expression of smug domestic bliss. Gatsby the German shepherd, in a red velvet boatie and zero patience. But the real star? The framed break-up text glimmering behind them, slightly out of focus, like a ghost of Christmas mistakes. She made sure it was just visible enough to haunt. Front of the card. Too much love to handle. Inside. Wishing you a season of stability, emotional maturity, and perfectly executed legacy takeovers. Warmest regards. Mr. and Mrs. Langford. And Gatsby. P.S. Special thanks to everyone who said I wasn't wife material. You were right, I was far more. She sent 250 copies. Every ex-friend. Every board member who doubted her. Every man who ever liked her Instagram post and then ghosted. Her former therapist's assistant. The Pilates instructor who once told her maybe just slow down. And of course, her ex, now officially cut off, cast out, and on his third rebrand. His card arrived hand-delivered. Wrapped in Langford estate paper. Tied with a velvet ribbon. He opened it. He screamed. Screenshots of the card leaked on Instagram. Someone made it their wallpaper. A minor influencer recreated it with a caption. I aspire to this level of seasonal spite. Fashion blogs called her the Frostbite Queen. Reddit debated whether the breakup text was AI-generated art. Charles just refilled her champagne. Was it too much, he asked, grinning. She looked over the gold foil envelope in her hand and replied. No such thing, darling. Not anymore. By New Year's Eve, guests came to the estate just to take selfies in front of the framed text. She leaned into it. Created a velvet rope. Added lighting. She was planning a new plaque. This is why we don't send breakup texts. Chapter 21, His friends want her number. There's a special kind of betrayal that sings in soprano, the moment a man's own friends slide into the DMs of the woman who ruined him. And she wasn't surprised. Because once you've conquered the estate, the inheritance, the headlines, and the holidays, it's only a matter of time before the entourage starts asking if you're free for coffee. At first, it was small things. A like here. A fire emoji on a gala photo. A wow, stunning from a college buddy who once called her intense behind her back. She noticed. She always noticed. Then the messages began. Hey, just wanted to say you're killing it lately. You always had that it factor. We should catch up sometime. No pressure. Just vibes. She didn't reply. She screenshotted. She filed. She waited. Because petty power isn't always loud. Sometimes it waits until the perfect moment to explode like a well-timed scandal grenade. His best friend. The one who gave the breakup speech at that awful rooftop bar party. The one who said she was a little much for long-term energy. That one. He messaged her at 2:14 a.m. I get it now. He was never enough for you. She read it, set down her martini, and smiled. He confronted one of them, the weakest of the group, of course, a guy named Brandt who still wore leather bracelets and referred to women as females. Bro, the ex snarled. Are you seriously trying to hit on my stepmother? Brandt blinked. She's not really your mom, though. She destroyed me. Brandt shrugged. Yeah. But, like, hotly. They used to have a guys-only group called Lang Bros, yes, truly. Now? Half were sending her fiery acts. One accidentally tagged her in a meme about winning at life. And one brave soul flat out messaged her. If it doesn't work out with Charles, call me. She did not call. She did not reply. She simply took a screenshot, printed it on linen stationery, and sent it in a sealed envelope to the ex, with no note inside. Just the paper. The betrayal. The inevitable collapse of his last shred of ego. Not by flirting. Not even by responding. She ignored them. And in doing so, she became a legend. She showed up at events where they were in attendance, and when they nervously waved, she smiled like she didn't remember them, like they were doormen or waiters or distant echoes of lesser choices. She made them invisible. That, she knew, was worse than rejection. It was irrelevance, and in their world, that was a fate worse than hell. At a private rooftop dinner in Manhattan, she caught sight of 3 of the ex's old crew at the bar. One made the mistake of approaching her. You look phenomenal, he said, trying not to sweat. She took a long sip of her drink and said, thanks. Remind me, were you the one who said I was too intense for real estate brunches? He stammered. She turned away before he could answer, took Charles's arm, and walked into the crowd. As they disappeared into chandeliers and champagne, one of the men muttered, God, she is scary. The other whispered back, yeah. But like, in a good way. Chapter 22, Therapy Bills and Electric Bills. There comes a point in every cautionary tale when the villain isn't the one in red lipstick and Louboutins. It's the man who thought she'll never leave. The man who said, you're too much. The man who believed he could walk away from fire without getting burned. Well, now he was burning. And she? She was scheduling a facial in St. Bart's. He was living in a sublet with peeling paint and a passive-aggressive roommate named Devin. The walls were thin. The wine was boxed. The thermostat was broken. The electricity bill arrived late, addressed to C. Langford, not that one. His only inheritance now was overdue notices and existential dread. He tried once a week at first. But after the 4th panic attack in a Whole Foods parking lot, his therapist suggested increasing sessions for emotional stabilization. By session 10, he was journaling furiously in a leather-bound notebook he couldn't afford, muttering things like, "It's not even about the money. It's the symbolism. I should have seen it coming." She really framed the text, like she framed it. He said her name more than his own. The therapist nodded calmly and wrote in her notes. Client exhibits classic symptoms of being publicly outmaneuvered by an emotional genius with access to old money and newer revenge tactics. She was sipping Veuve Clicquot at 38,000 feet in a private jet named Closure. Literally. The jet had it painted on the tail wing in her handwriting. She and Charles were en route to Capri. For lunch. Not a vacation, just a long lunch. Because when your net worth exceeds the GDP of a small country and your enemies are all in therapy, you don't make travel plans. You make statements. Her. A new assistant named Sloane who never blinked and always carried mints. Custom silk pajamas with wife material embroidered in gold thread. An offshore account called Too Much Holdings. Spa treatments so advanced they were legally considered biohacking. A passive income stream from luxury divorce retreats she silently funded. Him. Credit card declined at a bodega. Screen cracked. Started vaping again. Wrote a Medium post called Healing When Your Ex Marries Your Father, a journey that got 2 likes, both bots. A therapy bill larger than his rent. They passed each other once. Briefly. He was exiting his therapist's building. She was leaving a brunch hosted by Architectural Digest across the street. He stopped. Froze. Looked hopeful. She didn't stop. She didn't even glance. Her sunglasses stayed on. Her stride never broke. He stood there, hand half raised in the air like a forgotten thought. And in that silence, he realized the truth. She no longer even needed to acknowledge him to ruin him. She had evolved past the need for vengeance. She had achieved what all icons do. She became untouchable. His therapy bill. $320, session #18 grieving legacy loss. Her electric bill. $0, paid in full by the Langford Trust, automatically, silently, forever. Chapter 23, she hosts a charity ball in his honor, sort of. There are 2 kinds of charity galas. One, the kind thrown for tax purposes, where socialites pretend to care about dolphins while wearing diamonds heavier than the dolphin itself. 2, and the kind she threw. Weaponized philanthropy. Ballroom vengeance in couture. And yes, technically in his honor. Well, sort of. It happened over tea. She was casually reviewing press clippings and scanning through her pending petty projects folder when she saw a headline. Disgraced Langford heir launches mental health podcast for men. 3 followers. 2 episodes. 0 emotional growth. And just like that, inspiration struck. She turned to her assistant Sloane and said, "Let's throw a ball. For men who've been told they are not the main character anymore." Sloane blinked once and replied, "Theme. Emotional accountability," she said, grinning. "And opulence." The gala title, Too Much Foundation presents The Ball of Bare Minimums. Yes, that's what she called it. The Ball of Bare Minimums, an evening of excess, empathy, and emotional evolution. A charity event for the underdeveloped modern man. The tagline. Because sometimes healing begins with realizing she was right. She booked the Grand Langford Ballroom, renovated to feature her initials inlaid in the marble. A live orchestra and an interpretive dance troupe called Triggered, a journey. A signature cocktail, the Ghosted Gimlet, comes with a lime wedge and an apology note. Dessert called Wife Material, dark chocolate, bitter caramel, wrapped in edible gold paper and regret. Proceeds would benefit mental health initiatives for emotionally stunted men. A silent auction included. A year of therapy, anonymous donor equals her. A spa retreat titled Let Her Go, a weekend for closure. A framed copy of the breakup text, signed by her and titled, The Catalyst. She invited his former friend group, now mysteriously obsessed with her. Several of his ex-girlfriends, for perspective. Mental health professionals. Media outlets. And yes, him. The invitation read. You inspired something beautiful. We thought you should see it. ML. He didn't RSVP. He didn't have to. She arrived in a custom gown made entirely of recycled breakup letters and crushed male egos, sculpted into a corset that whispered, "I'm your origin story." Charles was in full tuxedo mode, glowing like a proud trophy husband. Gatsby wore a velvet bow tie with rhinestones that spelled out therapized. The mood was electric. The press was salivating. The donations poured in. Half the attendees didn't even realize the whole thing was a slow-motion funeral for her ex's reputation. The other half absolutely did. And tipped extra. Midway through the waltz, there he was. Standing in the doorway. Uninvited. Unshaven. Wearing a blazer that didn't quite fit and emotional baggage that absolutely did. He looked around, at the dancers, the decor, the framed screenshots, the pamphlets that said you may be the problem, a guide to post-ego existence. And then he saw the stage. Her stage. Where she stood, backlit in red, giving a speech. This event is for everyone who's ever been told they were too much. Who dared to feel. Who refused to shrink. And to those who didn't know how to love us back. We wish you peace. But mostly, perspective. The audience applauded. He left. No tantrum this time. Just silence. Just the sound of his pride hitting the pavement outside in $60 loafers. She took his name. His house. Now she's taking his legacy, one gala at a time. And below that. Mrs. Langford, turning heartbreak into high society. Chapter 24, 1 year later, one empire built. 12 months had passed. Since the wedding. Since the will. Since the ex-boyfriend's nervous breakdown in a conservatory lined with fresh orchids and vintage betrayal. And now? She didn't just have revenge. She had a **ing empire. The year of her ascension. The transformation wasn't subtle. It was seismic. She had gone from ex-girlfriend with a grudge to Mrs. Langford, CEO, icon, and self-made myth. She wasn't someone you gossiped about anymore. She was someone you pitched to. Let's talk numbers. Net worth, high enough to make hedge fund managers sweat. Properties owned, 7. Private jets, 2, closure and more than enough. Employees, 140 across 4 businesses. Enemies left, technically 0. They'd all been absorbed, destroyed, or converted into brand ambassadors. The brand, too much trademark symbol. It started as a joke. Now it was a movement. Too much trademark symbol became a luxury perfume line, first scent, heirloom regret. A skincare line called Unbothered, tagline, for skin that's seen everything and flinched at nothing. A capsule fashion collection with Vogue, designed entirely in shades of vengeance. A podcast, Too Much with Mrs. Langford, that debuted at #1 globally. Guests included psychologists, ex-royalty, and at least one Oscar winner who confessed mid-episode, "Honestly, I think I was her once." The office, a temple of her own design. Her main headquarters? A repurposed glass chapel in Manhattan. Inside, velvet seating, gold fixtures, soft lighting, and a reception desk staffed by women who smiled like sharks. Above the main atrium hung a massive neon sign. Be the reason someone rewrites their will. The ex. Still floundering. Still podcasting from his apartment that used to be a storage unit. Still bitter. Still blocked. His last episode was titled, "Can You Forgive Someone Who Became Your Stepmom Just to Humiliate You?" It had 17 views. 2 dislikes. And a single, anonymous review that simply said, "No." She was invited everywhere. Met Gala. Davos. Cannes. A UN Women's Summit, where she gave a keynote titled, "Weaponized Femininity and Asset Reallocation, A Love Story." She didn't walk into rooms anymore, she was preceded by whispers and followed by lighting texts. Every lens loved her. Every table wanted her. And Charles? Still happily married. Still holding her purse in public. Still kissing her hand like it was holy scripture. It was personal. She bought her ex's childhood home and turned it into a wellness retreat named Too Late. She adopted a cat and named it Inheritance. She purchased the URL of his failed startup and redirected it to her foundation. She didn't destroy him. She dismantled him with artisanal precision. A year later, the world had one word for her. Unstoppable. She hadn't just survived heartbreak. She had curated it. Monetized it. Hung it in galleries and sprayed it on tourists. And as she stood on the balcony of her Capri villa, wind in her hair, glass of champagne in hand, empire pulsing beneath her stilettos, she thought only one thing. I told him I was too much. And now I'm more than he'll ever be. Chapter 25, The Fireplace, Forever. Some artifacts belong in museums. Some in vaults. Some in the Louvre. But hers? Hers belonged above the fireplace. Because in a house built on legacy, betrayal, and reclaimed power, there had to be a monument. Not to love. Not to loss. But to retribution executed with couture elegance and a legal team on retainer. The room where it all ended, and began. The grand hall had changed. Gone were the dusty oil paintings of forgotten Langfords with double chins and colonial interests. Gone were the ancestral relics, the musty books, the brittle velvet curtains. Now? The room was light. Airy. Elegant. Curated by one of Milan's most vicious interior designers and scented faintly with eucalyptus, white rose, and victory. But the centerpiece. The true masterpiece. Hung above the fireplace. Still. Eternal. Reverent. The text, still there. Now museum lit. You're a lot. I don't think you're wife material. It's not you, it's the chaos. The frame screenshot, high resolution, triple matted, backed in black velvet, was now encased behind museum-grade glass. Beneath it, a new plaque had been installed. Carved in marble. Edged in gold. This moment made a monarch. In honor of emotional clarity, digital receipts, and the power of being too much. Asterisk. Mrs. Langford, matriarch in residence. Tour guides now mention it by name. Guests were escorted past velvet ropes during private estate tours. This is the Langford fireplace, the guide would explain. And that, well, that's the text that started it all. Most gasped. A few took discreet selfies. One billionaire's third wife fainted from sheer admiration. She sat before it often. Not every night. Not to gloat. Not to relive. But to remind herself, and the world, what it meant to rewrite your ending. She would sit with a glass of scotch or a cup of tea, Gatsby curled at her feet, her phone buzzing with meeting requests from monarchs and moguls. Sometimes she would trace the edge of the frame and whisper. Not wife material. Try matriarch. The ex? No one knows for sure. Rumors swirl. That he changed his name and moved to Oregon to teach improved. That he started dating a tarot reader who insists he's a Pisces. That he sees a new therapist now. One who specializes in rebuilding after iconic female ruin. He has never returned to the estate. He has never asked for the frame back. He wouldn't dare. The legacy, set in stone, glass, and flame. That fireplace became more than a centerpiece. It became a monument. To every woman told she was too loud. Too emotional. Too much. To everyone who turned her heartbreak into her empire. To everyone who stopped apologizing and started filing paperwork. And so the story ends. With a text. A flame. And a woman who refused to be edited into someone else's comfort zone. She left him nothing. Just the words he sent. Framed. Immortal. Hung above the fire. Forever. Epilogue, the museum of her life. 5 years later. A new building stood on the edge of the city, sleek glass, black stone, and curves like whispered secrets. There was no sign outside, just a symbol, a gold monogram of the letter L, wrapped in thorns and laurels. Inside, people called it the Museum of Her Life. Officially, it was the Langford Institute for Emotional Archaeology, part foundation, part gallery, part mythos. It held the physical relics of one woman's climb from heartbreak to legend. The first pair of heels she wore to the will signing. The original velvet-covered frame of the breakup text, now encased behind bulletproof glass. The handwritten notes from Too Much trademark symbol S first product pitch. A looping projection of her infamous holiday card. A quote wall, her real words, gilded on matte black. They told me to be less. So I became everything. In the final room, a mirror. Visitors exited through a quiet corridor, tall ceilings, silence, a velvet path. At the end was a large mirror. No plaque. No explanation. Just a reflection. Visitors understood. Because the story wasn't just hers. It was every woman's. Every person ever told to shrink, soften, silence themselves for someone less brave. And now? Now they stood before their own reflection, framed in her empire. As for her, she never gave interviews anymore. She didn't need to. Once a year, she sent out handwritten invitations to a small, candlelit gathering in the original Langford estate, just 12 seats at the long dining table, each occupied by someone who had risen from ashes with stilettos, spreadsheets, or swordplay. They drank. They toasted. They burned one regret in the fireplace. And she always ended the night with the same words. Chaos is where I was born. Legacy is where I live. The fireplace still burns its tended daily. Not just for warmth, but as a reminder. That one text message, one insult, one underestimation, can spark the rise of an empire. The frame still hangs above it. Still perfect. Still cruel. Still eternal.
Thanks for watching. If this story hit home, don't forget to like the video. It helps more people discover powerful stories like this one. Leave a comment below and tell us what you think, or share your own experience. Subscribe to Revenge and Strong Women for more emotional, gripping tales where strength rises and justice is served. And don't forget to hit the bell so you never miss an upload. Around here, pain doesn't break us, it builds us. And the best revenge is showing them who you became after they tried to destroy you.